Welcome back to Portsmouth, the Spinnaker Tower in all its glory there. Now, the Spinnaker Tower has actually been lit yellow all week to celebrate the Great South Run. And it's fair to say that plenty of people have come out in support of this 10-mile event.
Thanks, Helen. Yes, good morning, everybody. The sun is indeed shining, and we cannot wait for this fascinating 10-mile race to get going. Two really classy elite fields, the best of British, and we have two very special guests from Ethiopia waiting to be introduced to the crowd. And first to be introduced is the European cross-country champion from a couple of years ago, Gemma Steele. 7th in the World Half Marathon champs in 2012 and runner-up at the Great North Run last year. Also representing Great Britain, a PB in Rio, finished in 16th place at the top 8 of the European Championships. Jess Andrews, what a year it's been for her. Now the first of the two Ethiopians, silver medalist last year at the World Cross Country and the 5,000 metres, and just missed the medal in Rio, Sembere Teferi, only 21 years of age. What a talent. And now, someone we have been eagerly anticipating watching here in Portsmouth, the triple Olympic champion, the 9-time world champion at cross-country and on the track, male or female. Tirunesh Dibaba is one of the greatest distance runners the world has ever seen, and she's here for this Portsmouth and Southsea 10-mile race. What a treat. So, Saskia Clark and Hannah Mills just about to get things underway here. And remember, Hannah's going to be ditching the klaxon and the tracksuit top and joining in. So the 2016 Great South Run is underway, and Dave Moorcroft alongside me in the commentary box. This is absolutely brilliant. To have an athlete of the calibre and the class and the history and the pedigree of Tirunesh Dibaba in this race is fantastic. We've been looking forward to this one for the last couple of weeks.
We are, and she is a fantastic athlete, and this is her first time that she's run the classic 10-mile distance. And you said earlier, and I was talking with Brendan Foster yesterday, we talk about how wonderful the African athletes have been over the years, Gabri Selassie, Kenenisa Bekele, Derata Tulu, many others. And you know, Dibaba is probably the best, right up there. Her list of medals is astonishing. 3 Olympic gold medals, 3 Olympic bronze medals, world record, numerous world titles over a 13-year period. And it's a joy to watch her run. When she runs, she's one of the smoothest, most controlled, most compact runners. She's got a vicious finish at the end. And, you know, it's a joy to welcome her here today to Portsmouth and to watch her run this classic 10-mile distance.
And it'll be interesting as well, Dave, just to see how the rest of the field respond, because, of course, these are world-class women here, but they will all, in the back of their minds, know that this is Dibaba's race to lose.
I think so. I mean, Teferi, her Ethiopian colleague, will make things difficult for her. But, you know, the likes of Gemma Steele in recent years on the road and the Great North Run, Birmingham and down in Portsmouth, has really mixed it with the best of the African athletes. But it's a tough ask. And even now, as they have the wind, unusually have the wind behind them over the first mile, there's a gap. And Dibaba looks like she's quite prepared to take it on from the front. She really has all the options. At her best, she could run a race in whatever way suited her. She could sit and kick, or she could take the lead and move it on. You know, she's almost the complete distance runner. And at the age of 31, is getting towards the end of her career. But when you have that class, that ability, she's fantastic.
And people think she was past it, getting the bronze at the Olympics. Far from it. Tirunesh Dibaba in total control here in the early stages. So a pretty steady mile from Tirunesh Dibaba, 5:28. Very comfortable for the triple Olympic champion. And in this glorious, gorgeous early autumnal sunshine, one of the greatest distance runners of all time is setting her stall out very early here. A fantastic course. 25th year since it moved from Southampton to here in Portsmouth. Heads out past the Spinnaker Tower onto HMS Victory. A beautiful tour of the historic Gunport Quays before heading out towards and past the Guildhall. And I wonder if we might get a course record this year. Conditions are absolutely beautiful. Past the Queen's Hotel between 5 and 6. And then a turn for home just past the Yomper statue. And a tailwind, very unusually, for the last mile and 3/4 before the relief of the finish line just past the South Parade Pier. Tiranish de Barber and Senberi Teferi alongside each other, with a little bit of a gap growing now to Veronica Inglesi, the Italian, in third, and she's got Elisabeth Chirono of the Netherlands just on her shoulder. The former Kenyan who won the Great Birmingham Run in such fine style by over a minute. So we have a lead quartet just beginning to pull away from the best of British, and it's panning out as we were expecting in the early stages, Dave.
Yeah, no great surprises, and the two Ethiopian athletes are clear now. You mentioned earlier the possibility of a course record. Well, that's 51 minutes held by Sonia O'Sullivan, which means that these women would have to average about 5 minutes 6 seconds per mile. Well, the first mile was 5:28, so that kind of means that they're not going to be going for the record today. And de Barber said in her interview earlier, the priority for her isn't records, it's winning. And she knows that with Teferi, she's got to run very, very well to beat her Ethiopian colleague. But at the moment, they're clear. They'll be comfortably clear. We'll be interested to see what their second mile is. But having made this break, they won't be in any hurry to let the opposition close that gap.
And they're just an indication as to the early advantage currently being enjoyed by the two Ethiopians. De Barber looks as though she's the one setting the pace, and Teferi alongside her, and somewhat 20 metres or so before the pairing of Inglesi and Chirono as they head into the dockyard. An absolutely beautiful place to run. OK, these elite athletes may not be taking too much notice of the likes of HMS Warrior and HMS Victory, but I'm sure those who are running for fun and running for charity will be very much enjoying the tour of the dockyards. And let's remind ourselves, it's the 27th edition of the Great South Run, and since this marvellous event first took place, more than £30 million has been raised for local and national charities. This event has become a key part of the South Coast's sporting calendar, and it's great to see it thriving, and it's great to see athletes of the quality of de Barber attracted here to come and take part in a historic race on a historic course. And
there's a lot of emphasis on marathons and half marathons, but the 10 mile, there's HMS Victory. The 10 mile is a classic distance. It's a really simple distance to understand. You know, most runners know what mile times they're doing, and all they've got to do is multiply their mile times by 10, and they've got their 10 mile time. So it's a fabulous distance, a wonderfully flat course, quite windy today on occasions, and some of the greatest athletes the world has ever seen running.
The Mary Rose Museum just behind them, reopened this year, sank in 1545. And I can remember being allowed to be late for school and watch the footage when it was being raised all those decades ago. Showing signs of my age here, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely, Rob. And I think we showed signs of our age this morning when we walked to the course and struggled to get there. But a great aerial view.
OK, more from the elite women's race very soon. Meanwhile, still enjoying the sunshine and the atmosphere at the start is Helen Skelton. Well, I tell you what, if they run under the hour, that's a great achievement. That's a real club runner's barrier, that one. Under the hour, breaking 6-minute miling all the way along. So the Royal Marines will be getting great support on the course, and I'm sure the two leading ladies will be getting cheered on as they make their way around the streets of Portsmouth. De Barber and Teferi, her 21-year-old compatriot, 5:16, Dave, for that second mile, and that perhaps is the reason why their lead has increased noticeably.
Yes, the 5:16 would have broken the rest of the field. It still means that they're not on course for a record. But again, both of them have made that gap now, and what we expected, that it would be a race between the two, that's the way it's kind of materialised. There's the chasing group following, running their own race. Third place in this field would be pretty special if you're beaten by, you know, two of the strongest athletes in the world. So for all these, Gemma Steele and the rest of the British athletes, really concentrating on trying to get on the podium and doing nothing heroic at this moment, happily go along for the ride, but conscious at some point in the next 3 or 4 miles, particularly when you go into the wind, then you've really got to make an effort. But for Dibaba and for Teferi, they're kind of feeling each other out, really. They're happy to share the pace, happy to run relatively comfortable, not in the least bit interested in records, but knowing that at some point in the next 3 or 4 miles, probably Teferi has got to try and make a break, because she probably thinks that in a sprint finish, Dibaba will be really difficult to beat.
Well, I suppose especially because she'll have enormous respect for what Dibaba's achieved, but also, as we've intimated already, Dibaba's still in shape because she secured that lifetime best in the 10,000 metres. I think that makes her the 4th fastest in history. So Teferi knows, even though she's 10 years younger than Dibaba, Tirunesh not only has the credentials, but she's in cracking shape coming off the back of that lifetime best in Rio.
Absolutely, but we also know the changing of the guard within any nation is races like this. The 10 years difference is significant, and Teferi would have grown up worshipping Dibaba and Haile Gebrselassie and others. And then when she got to the point when she realised that she was world class, she went to the World Championships, won a silver medal. In her mind, she'd be thinking, I need to beat the likes of Dibaba to establish myself in Ethiopia.
Well, a fascinating battle unfolding. Meanwhile, there are still some eager men and women at the start waiting for their journey to begin. Well, they must be immensely proud of their mum. It doesn't matter how long her journey takes. Even making it to the start line has been nothing short of extraordinary. So, many human interest stories, many great people raising money for charity. Now we turn our attention to the elite fields once again. Scott Overall, who could forget that marvellous marathon debut, 2:10:55, and was 10th in Berlin last year, competed in the Olympics back in London in 2012. Now over from the United States, Jeff Eggleston, 2:10 marathon runner, 13th in Moscow at the World Championships. How will he fare over this shorter distance? Chris Thompson, winner of the Great Birmingham last year, runner-up this year. He's such a likeable figure, European silver medalist as well, of course. He was on cracking form over dinner last night, and he's up for a bit of revenge over the man who beat him last week. This fella, also a European Championship silver medalist over 10,000 metres, winner last weekend. There's great banter and great rivalry between the two Hampshire lads. So, Alan and Della Pasco, back where it all began. And they have ensured the men's race and the masses are underway here for the 2016 Great South Run. Brilliant to have Alan here, and he looks as though he's in fine form and fettle. I'm not sure there's any danger of him getting the trainers on to join in, Dave, but great to have him back here where his journey began.
Both Alan and Della were born and bred in Portsmouth. Della went to 2 Olympic Games as a sprinter. Alan, European champion, Commonwealth champion, Olympic silver medalist in the 4x4 in Munich, and a real special occasion for them. And lovely that in their home city they can see 25,000 people enjoying the delights of running, keeping fit, keeping healthy and raising money for charity. A great day for them and a great day for the city.
Well, I wonder if the organisers would have believed when this race began life in 1990 that it would be so successful for so long. We're not far away from completing 3 decades in this marvellous event. £30 million having been raised for various causes, and today Yes, we've got a little bit of wind, but the sun is shining. It's the perfect backdrop and the perfect setting for a distance that really separates the men from the boys as far as the elites are concerned.
It is, it's a tough old distance, 10 miles, and it's a flat course, but you never entirely relax because the wind is quite undulating. It's quite, it is behind the athletes at the moment, which is quite unusual, but they've got a long drag into the wind towards the finish, and then with the wind behind them in the last mile or two. But that's a beautiful sight, isn't it? Rob and I walked here earlier this morning and just felt that atmosphere, felt the buzz. People of all shapes and sizes, great spectators, beautiful view, a sensational view, and 25 athletes that are going to have a fantastic experience, and it means so much to them to finish the race, to be watched by their family, many of them running for great causes. A brilliant occasion, and Portsmouth has done the south of England proud today.
It certainly has. Sure, Alan Pascoe will be enjoying these sights. That was the Portsmouth War Memorial just there that the athletes run past, commemorating 25,000 British and Commonwealth sailors lost in both World Wars. And there is the European and Commonwealth champion. He's getting every little drop out of those klaxons along with his wife. He was out for a walk earlier on this week in Portsmouth, dusting off the skills with Brendan Foster, Dave.
We went for a walk yesterday near where Alan and Della have their sort of beach home, and Brendan challenged Alan to a hurdles race, and I was the starter come commentator, and it was quite impressive, and I think maybe Brendan slightly got the edge at the end. But it was wonderful. We were talking of, it was great to talk about old memories, and Della herself, as Della James, was equalled the British record for the 100 meters in Mexico, and we had a wonderful time just talking about all things running, and very definitely a part of that group. The older we get, the better we used to be.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with a few good stories over a couple of glasses of red, and you were certainly a pretty useful athlete in your day, Dave. I can remember watching that world record in 1982. Great memories.
Now this is interesting. Chris Thompson came second last week to Andy Vernon in Birmingham, and in a sense let Andy control the race. And it's a big ask for either of them to come back after a half marathon to try and win. But Chris has really laid down the gauntlet today. He said, I'm off early, and I'm going to make life as difficult as I possibly can for Andy and the rest of the guys from the gun.
Well, it was fascinating chatting to them over dinner last night, wasn't it, Dave? Hearing some of your stories and some of their memories of what they perceived to be their best races. And you could tell that there's great respect between the two of them, but there's a very healthy rivalry here, and we've seen Chris Thompson there just glance over his shoulder one or two times just to make sure, or just to assess who's where. And Andy Vernon, along with the Irishman Paul Pollock, has been equal to the challenge here. And as Chris Thompson took the lead, now once again Andy Vernon deciding he's going to take it on, and actually look at that, they're laughing with each other and joking, snaking left and snaking right. What a great spirit early on in this race. That gives you an indication as to how well these two guys get on.
They do get on well, but that was playing cat and mouse, but with victory in mind, not with kind of humour in mind, if you know what I mean. Because this, as well as being a fantastic race, we haven't had a British victor since Mo Farah back in 2009. But there's also a lot of local pride at stake. This is the Hampshire Championships, the Aldershot Farnham and District Championships as well.
Great to see the two men smiling. Paul Pollock in that group as well, and he's quite a modest guy, Paul. I thought he ran well in the Olympics with a 2:16. I mean, he modestly said, well, hang on, I was only 30 seconds, but 2:16, he's a 62:10 half marathon runner. But that's the story at the front of the men's race. Meanwhile, the masses are still meandering their way across the start line in beautiful sunshine and with a great spirit. Now, the leading women, it is still the two Ethiopians, the 31-year-old Tirunesh Dibaba, the triple Olympic champion, against the 21-year-old World Championship silver medalist from last year's 5,000 metres, Sembere Teferi. And their gap and their advantage is 22 seconds over that chase group that contains 3 Britons and Elizabeth Chirono, the Kenyan expatriated to the Netherlands. She won last week at the Great Birmingham. So we have a wonderful duel for first at the moment, even though we are still in the relatively early stages here. But we also have a great battle for third going on a little bit further back down the road.
Yeah, and that 22 seconds, as we can see, they haven't turned around the corner yet, is decisive. So we're now clear about who the winner and the silver medalist will be. It's just a case of which of these two great runners at different stages of their career, with different pedigrees, will win. And although Dibaba is the favourite, and as we've said many occasions, she's one of the greatest distance runners, male or female, the world has ever seen, Teferi isn't going to be easy to beat today. You know, she's a youngster that has already got a world silver medalist, and for her the opportunity to try and beat one of her rivals is really significant. In her journey to world class, Teferi needs to beat Dibaba to establish herself in Ethiopia as one of the great runners of that nation.
These journeys will take a little bit longer, and I wonder when we'll get a glimpse of Hannah Mills, one half of the British sailing gold medal winning duo with Saskia Clark. Saskia Clark is the cheerleader. Hannah ditched the klaxon and joined in amongst the masses. So there's an Olympic champion sailor in amongst the thousands taking part here amongst the men and women raising money for charity. 4:40 for the first mile for the men. And just looking at the group running together here, I think this is ever so tactical now, Dave.
It's very tactical. Again, the course record of, I think, 45 minutes 16, something like that, isn't under threat. Sharp in the lead. Andy Vernon on the right will be quite happy. He knows that he has the psychological advantage, having won the Great Birmingham race last week. And I can't remember any athlete, male or female, who's won the Great Birmingham race run one weekend and come and won the Great South the following. So either with Andy or with Chris, that's possible. Chris is a previous winner, but this is very tactical. Scott Overall's tucked in there between Vernon and Thompson. Pollock is sitting in second place, Sharp in the front. A relatively steady pace, and already it's become a tactical race. Sort of things going through the athlete's mind are, I might as well control it from behind at the moment, but at some point I've got to put my foot down, and Andy Vernon did it very effectively last weekend in Birmingham.
Yes, fascinating. And what a place for these guys to be running. They did their interviews up on HMS Victory earlier in the week. And there's the Mary Rose Museum in the background. Just a little mention for Matt Sharp, who we could see leading the male group there. He's gone inside 30 minutes this year for the 10K, 65 minutes for the half marathon. Now, Tirunesh Dibaba just deciding to push things on just a fraction here with her younger compatriot behind her. 4:56, so they've gone inside 5 minutes for the first time, Dave. And also, the last time we saw Teferi, I just noticed her only fleetingly reaching with her left hand towards her right abdomen, and I just wondered whether she might be experiencing a stitch.
Yeah, athletes get a stitch. Athletes of all standards get a stitch, and they hold their side just to try to relieve the discomfort, the cramp. But each mile has been progressively faster, and 4:56 for the last mile is really pouring it on, is faster than the average speed that would have been needed had they gone for the world record. But we can see Teferi again, she's struggling. She's got a stitch, her shoulder's probably hurt, she's trying to relax, but she can't relax. And Dibaba will sense, even though she can't see that Teferi is dropping off, she'll sense that she is. She won't hear her feet on the ground, and Dibaba will think, well, I might as well just pour it on now. So this next mile will also be quick, and she's dominating from the front. She knows that she's got Teferi beaten, and she has now to make the break decisive, because if she gets away, and Teferi's really struggling now, really struggling, to the point when she might even struggle to finish. and Dibaba has broken her, and there's no way back for Teferi at the moment. I mean, as far as Teferi is concerned at the moment, she's now thinking, can I make it to the finish?
Well, what a treat for those on the streets of Portsmouth. They will get to witness one of the great distance runners of all time surging her way to what she hopes will be a great victory here in the Great South Run. Tirunesh Dibaba is living up to her star-studded billing here. She has left Sembere Teferi trailing in her wake, and I wonder whether Teferi may well end up in a battle not only to stay on the podium but to finish the race. We've got the likes of Lily Partridge and Beth Potter running well, but this is just so good from Dibaba, and Dave, it just looks effortless, this.
It does, and you know, great distance runners make running fast look so easy, and it isn't easy, and it's not easy for Dibaba. She will be suffering a little bit, but they have an ability to, as I said, they run so fast in training, so hard in training, and that they're able to run at a fast pace, looking very relaxed and very composed. And she's actually running into the wind at this point. She's running in probably the hardest part of the course. And usually the wind is behind the athletes at this point, and they run into a very strong headwind for the final mile. Well, today the wind is the opposite way round. So this, in a sense, is probably the toughest part of the race with, what, about 3.5 miles to go. But the gap is decisive now, isn't it?
It's big. And as far as Tirunesh Dibaba is concerned, she wants it to get even bigger. She has joined Doratu Tulu. As far as her Olympic 10,000 metre career is concerned, 2 golds and a bronze, but remember, of course, she did the double, the 5 and the 10 back in Beijing. She is her country's outstanding female performer, and the debate would linger, Dave, as to whether, in fact, you say she's the greatest Ethiopian distance runner, even, dare we say it, alongside or above Haile Gebrselassie and Kenenisa Bekele. And I think we are right to sort of metaphorically have that conversation, because it's not just what Tirunesh Dibaba has achieved over the years, it's the manner in which she's done it. And lest we forget, as she's proving here today, she's only 31 and the career isn't over.
Not at all. She's looking behind, but that's not in desperation. She's just looking behind just to check where the rest are. But as I said earlier, I had a conversation with Brendan Foster yesterday, and you always assume that the likes of Gebrselassie, Kenenisa Bekele are the greatest. But Dibaba has 3 Olympic gold medals, the same as Bekele, 1 more than Haile Gebrselassie. But Dibaba's also got 3 Olympic bronze medals, which is more than Kenenisa. And they share world records. They've won world cross-country titles, multiple world champions. And I honestly think Tirunesh Dibaba is at least on a par with anybody from Africa, male or female, in the last 20 years. And the men are still playing cat and mouse. Andy Vernon on the left. Scott Overall's interesting. When Scott ran his 2:10 in Berlin a few years ago, I think we and he thought he was going to kick on, having a fantastic marathon career. And it hasn't really quite happened. And Scott's looking good there. And he knows that Andy Vernon and Chris Thompson are probably the favourites. And Scott wouldn't fancy his chances in a sprint finish. But I think he's thinking to himself now, it might be worth just getting my head down. Chris Thompson and Andy Vernon are bound to be a bit tired. Scott ran the Chicago Marathon and ran a 10-mile race last week, so he's not entirely fresh. But if he's going to win this race, this is probably the time he's got to do it, the point when he's got to make life so difficult for those behind him that he can make a break. And it's a difficult tactical decision to make, because timing is everything.
Yes, an intriguing group of elite men together, a contrast to the elite women's race, where it's a solo effort from Tirunesh Dibaba, and a total contrast to those competing for fun, maybe running in memory of a loved one, and certainly raising money for a cause close to their hearts. And it really doesn't matter, I know it's a cliche, but it really doesn't matter how long it takes these men and women, as long as they get there and they raise a few quid, their agenda for the day will have been fulfilled and then some.
They're waving to the cameras. You know, many of them are running for charity. I know Cancer Research is one of the main charities, and there's a lady called Sue Humphrey from who began in a run group in rugby and is running in memory of her father, who was lost to cancer. But for Andy Vernon, Chris Thompson on the right, and Andy's doing what he did last week. He's getting at the point when he, you know, not that far from the finish, beyond halfway, he's thinking maybe I can push it on. And again, back to the women's race and the gap between the leaders and those in second and third.
Tirunesh Dibaba still pouring on the pace, pouring on the pressure. And that face is a picture of concentration, but I think it's a picture of composure as well. She has contested and won so many big races over the years. Drifted out to a 5.19 and then a 5.08. She's going really well here. A little bit of bunting out on the streets of Portsmouth here this morning. Fantastic to see that.
And she's run a 5.08 into the wind, which isn't easy. And that wind is pretty strong. But that face of Dibaba, you know, the composure over her shoulders and look concentrating but no stress is one we've seen on many occasions. And remember some of the greatest Olympic track finals when we've seen that face coming up into the bell, but then we've seen her change gear, and that the acceleration she has is breathtaking. It's wonderful to watch. It's a little bit like we've seen from Mo Farah in recent years. So the opposition, not today but in major championships, when Dibaba's around, the closer it gets to the finish, the more problems they've got. And it's a massive distance now, and Dibaba's really enjoying the experience, enjoying the crowd, enjoying the knowledge that this is her debut over the 10-mile distance, but it's going to be a winning debut. And there's the second place runner, still Teferi, has got back into a rhythm, not looking great. You can see she's quite flat-footed now, doesn't lift anything like the bounce of Dibaba. And we'll find out in a minute whether she's comfortably in second place or whether she's in any danger of being caught.
Teferi is in uncharted territory here. She's never done a race further than 4 miles until today. Her lead does look significant over the athletes in third. Last checkpoint, it was Elizabeth Chirono who won the Great Birmingham last week. That's an enormous gap from second back to the last podium position. So Teferi has clearly come through that bad patch, and at one stage it did look as though Teferi might actually drop out, and I'm pretty sure that is still Chirono in third place, but she is a long way behind Teferi, and we saw how well she ran in Birmingham last week. So not only does it underline what a great young talent Teferi is, but the fact that Chirono is so far behind Tirunesh Dibaba underlines what a great champion is currently leading this race.
It is, and Teferi will do well to finish second. It'll be a great performance from her, but the damage was really done with a sub 5-minute mile from Dibaba and one just over 5 minutes. It took Teferi away and clear in second place, but it also meant she suffered all the way towards the finish. And here's the other runners. Lady running in a bucket, which is a great idea early on in the course, or ladies, people dressed as ladies, running with buckets. Great idea early on in the race, but as you get more money and get closer to the end, those buckets don't halfway a lot.
Yeah, it's one of those that sounds like a good idea at the time, and there'll be more than a few pounds being put into the various charity pots at the end. Meanwhile, Andy Vernon at 5 miles, running on the opposite side of the road to Chris Thompson, and that's a pattern that we saw and were fascinated by 7 days ago in Birmingham. Vernon really fancies this, and remember, Dave, in that race 1 week ago, Andy Vernon hit the front on a slight incline just before the 8-mile marker. Well, I wonder whether this is his definitive bid to beat Chris Thompson twice in a week. Certainly not something that Tomo would fancy, but Vernon's up for this.
And Paul Pollock in third place is still in contention. You know, Andy made a break then, and as far as he was concerned, he was off and running and wanted to break the field, but he hasn't done it. Chris Thompson will be gaining in confidence, knowing that whereas last week Andy made that break and it was decisive, at a 4:28 mile there, he made that break and it was decisive. Today it isn't. And, you know, Chris really can just sit on Andy for a bit, because Andy will now be thinking, he'll be disappointed that he hasn't got away. He'll put in 1 or 2 more efforts. He's looking across now. He's taking his foot off the throttle a little bit. They're running on different sides of the road. If they were training together, they'd run side by side. They are from the same club. But today, there are mind games. Today, they are trying to beat each other. And today they don't want to help each other at all. And Pollock is in a very comfortable position in third.
And actually, just whilst you were talking, Dave, I was watching Chris Thompson, who was motioning for Paul Pollock to come forward. And I think it may have been as simple as, listen, fella, let's get on board here and share some of this workload. I've done my turn at the front, Andy's done his turn at the front, and you've been like a shadow running a metre behind us all the way. And Chris Thompson once again looks over his shoulder, and these three have a little bit of a gap over Matt Sharp and the likes of Scott Overall and the classy American Jeff Eggleston as well. But I wonder whether Pollock was just being requested there to do a little bit of the work. If he was, he's not interested. He's still tucked in behind Andy Vernon, and it's the two Britons, the two Aldershot, Farnham and District Hampshire boys who are side by side pulling this field along.
Well, we mentioned mind games, and for Paul Pollock, if Andy Vernon and Chris Thompson are happy to do the leading, why would Pollock worry about it? If he feels he's got a good kick at the end, then he's doing absolutely the right thing. You run the tactics that suit you to run the best race. And you can see Andy makes a move to the right, Chris makes a move to the left. At some point, probably Andy Vernon is really going to try and get his head down and really try and break the field as he did last week. Probably Chris Thompson is thinking, I'm actually quite comfortable here and I quite fancy my sprint finish and I'd love to win this race, and particularly I'd love to beat my teammate Andy Vernon.
And I think with Chris Thompson, if you look back on his history, although we might look at him and say, well, he's 35, he's getting towards the end of his career, in theory, and with most people, that might be correct. But his has been a career littered and ravaged by injuries. And I don't know about you, but last night when we had dinner, I got the distinct feeling he still feels as though he's got something big to contribute to this sport. He certainly doesn't feel as though he wants to retire and can be happy with what he's doing. And I think Vernon, by the way, is getting annoyed with Paul Pollock, which is why they've been veering across the road, and they've now got Pollock isolated in third, and the two Britons are running side by side. I think Thompson still thinks there's something he can contribute to the sport.
Yeah, and so he should. He's a great talent. You know, as a junior at European under-23 level, he and Mo Farah were on a par. In fact, I think Chris Thompson beat Mo Farah in the European under-23 5,000 metres many years ago. But whereas Mo's kicked on and become one of the greatest distance runners in the world's ever seen, Chris has really had a career that's been punctuated, littered with injuries, really bad, severe injuries. And he's run very fast 10,000 metres, he's run very fast marathons, but he's a great talent. A really courageous runner, a determined runner. And, you know, probably now there's enough of a gap there, if he could sense it, enough of a gap there for him to really pour it on. Intuitively, he'll know that Andy Vernon and Paul Pollock are just falling behind slightly. And Chris has got to have the confidence now to kick on. There's no way back now. Chris has really got to pour it on just to make that break decisive. And for Andy Vernon, it's concentrating to make sure that 1 or 2 seconds doesn't become 4 or 5. It's the hard bit of the race, running into the wind. The final mile is wind behind, which is a bit of a boost. 4 miles to go.
It's a big move from Chris Thompson, but he was stung a little bit, in a friendly kind of way, by Andy Vernon's victory, taking his Great Birmingham Run title 7 days ago. This is a great section of the race now. He's really laid down the marker, and I think they were both getting annoyed with Paul Pollock. Chris Thompson now into the wind, deciding that this is going to be his bid, and the gap is growing a little bit. 4:49, that's done the damage. And now, unlike last week in Birmingham, he's asking the questions of Vernon, and now Andy Vernon, who won that great duel between them over the half marathon distance, now he has just under 4 miles to find the answers.
You know, in careers that have mirrored each other with European silver medals over 10,000 metres, this race is so similar to last week, but with a different leader and a different second place. 10 kilometres in 29:58, something like that. Anything under 30 minutes is good. 29:56, he's got a 2-second, 3-second lead. But Chris knows that he can't afford to go into the last mile or two with only 3 or 4 seconds lead. What he's got to try and do is break Andy Vernon physically and also mentally, to the point where Andy Vernon starts thinking about holding second place rather than winning the race. So although there's a massive physical element to this race, Chris Thompson trying to make the break, psychologically he's also got to break Vernon and Pollock. And Thompson's doing it the hard way. It's still a long way to go and some really tough running.
Well, Tirunesh Dibaba has the equivalent of 2 laps on the track separating her from victory here in the 2016 Great South Run. She was right at the front, right at the start, and since then it has never been in doubt. And the race has turned out as we hoped from a neutral's perspective. Teferi is almost a minute adrift. The gaps behind Tirunesh Dibaba are absolutely huge. And of course, we've been looking forward to seeing the best of British running. But from a neutral's point of view, a fully fit, fully flowing Tirunesh Dibaba is nothing short of a privilege to watch, because we are seeing one of the greats.
15 years at the top, and we should all relish watching this. Relish seeing one of the greatest distance runners the world's ever seen in full flow, in complete control, the master of pretty much any distance over her career, from 5,000 to 10 miles now. And here she comes towards victory in her debut over this distance, but just confirming what a wonderful athlete she is.
The 3-time Olympic champion, the 9-time world champion on the track and cross country, is absolutely flying here. It's not going to be a world record, a world best as it is over the 10 miles, or indeed a course record. But the first mile was a little bit conservative. Since then, it's been no holds barred from Tirunesh Dibaba. Accelerating, pulling away, still driving, and proving once again she's still the best.
And as she turns the corner from this quick left-right, she sees the finish, still 200 metres to go. She knows she's got the race won. 200 metres is what she does day in, day out in training and in racing. And she can just enjoy and relax, run through, and cherish the moment that she came to Portsmouth and won the Great South Run.
We should savour moments like this in careers like this, because athletes of the calibre of Tirunesh Dibaba do not come round more than once in a generation. The 3-time Olympic champion, the multiple world champion, is still accelerating. She's miles clear of the rest. It's been a demonstration of the talent that's kept her at the top for well over a decade. Tirunesh Dibaba is the 2016 Great South Run champion, and she made that look easy.
She did. It was anything other than easy, but it was a fantastic run. And you know, we don't know what the future holds for her, whether she still wants to win major medals on the track, or whether she's got half a mind on the marathon in the next few years leading up to Tokyo. In a sense, to join the likes of Haile Gebrselassie and Kenenisa Bekele of taking the marathon seriously. But Teferi has held on well, really, having struggled so badly in the midpoint of the race. She's now back looking relatively relaxed, relatively composed, and has the consolation that although she's finished second, she's been beaten by one of the greatest athletes Ethiopia's ever produced, but also one of the greatest athletes the world's ever seen.
Teferi has certainly endured her bad patches in this race. All credit to her for working through those, coming home inside 53 minutes. And there is never a disgrace in finishing in second place, especially when the woman you come in behind is your highly decorated compatriot, Tirunesh Dibaba. Elizabeth Cherono, a winner in Birmingham last week, is going to finish in third place this time. Perhaps we would have expected that, looking at the pre-race expectations and in the knowledge that Dibaba and Teferi were here off the back of an Olympic bronze, and in Teferi's case finishing 5th in the 5,000 metres. But Cherono's at the beginning of a really exciting journey here as well, Dave, coming over now representing Holland. A win last week, third this time, and she's putting together a great CV, and maybe we'll see her gracing some of the world's big city marathons in the future, because she too is a huge talent, and she's rounding off a very impressive 1, 2, 3.
It is, and in the past few weeks she's run a number of races, but last week to run a half marathon and to come back this week and race over 10 miles against these great Ethiopian athletes in front of her. Again, I think she'll be delighted to get third place, and I think she's earned a well-earned rest after these two really significant races. A victory in Birmingham, third place in Portsmouth, and Lily Partridge coming in fourth place. A really good run by Lily.
Yeah, excellent performance. She had a good run in Glasgow as well, finishing fourth there. She was ninth in the Great North in 73.45. A good runner. Another of the Aldershot Farnham District Brigade. 33.03 for a 10k in May. And Lily has come home inside 55 minutes. She is the leading European-born athlete. Tababa and Teferi for Ethiopia. Chirono, born in Kenya, now representing Holland. But that's a good run from Lily Partridge in fourth.
It is a good run, and here Chris Thompson's really poured it on, and that is exactly what he needed to do. You know, he wouldn't have wanted to look back because that shows weakness or shows concern, but he wouldn't be absolutely sure that he'd made a decisive break, but he did the right thing. He tested Andy Vernon, they tested each other out. He got to the front, got a little bit of distance, a little bit of a gap, and the experienced runner that Thompson is meant that whether it was within his plan or not, he knew he had an opportunity and he had to grab that opportunity, and he has done. And this is a really good run from a very, very talented athlete. 35 years of age, but a career that's probably been dominated by injury. But in between that, he's proved that he's one of the greatest, one of the best athletes in Britain and Europe, and still got a lot of running left in him. And it's a delight to see him winning this race, or at the moment leading. If he does win today, this race will be really significant because he is a Hampshire lad. And I think a lot of the lads like Chris and Andy dream of winning the Great South Run. And remember that the only Briton in recent years, or the last Briton, was Mo Farah back in 2009. So if Chris does win this, and he's running consistently in the 440s now in each mile, he's made a really significant break. And he really only has 3 miles to go, which doesn't sound a great deal, but actually he's still running into the wind. So he's still got more work to do, but he's dominated, he's controlled, he's looking back, and he knows that if he can keep pouring it on, he will win.
And actually, Dave, although he's running into a headwind here, he knows, because there's a very unusual easterly wind, just as Tirunesh Tababa's made the most of a tailwind in the last mile and 3/4, Chris Thompson will also have the advantage and the benefit of knowing that if he can just endure this headwind for another mile and a bit, he will be coming home, pushed all the way by a tailwind. And there's a familiar statue overlooking the masses, and HMS Victory. This is still very early on in the race. Tirunesh Tababa's finished. Chris Thompson's thinking about victory. But these men and women are thinking about holding off the blisters, trying to avoid walking, and maybe just enjoying the historic surroundings of Portsmouth Docks here, and the great landmarks and the great memories that have been produced here. A wonderfully proud naval city, and for the last 25 years they've laid on a fabulous edition of the Great South Run here in their own city, on their own turf. A brilliant day.
It is a great day, and it's a joy to watch it. You know, I'm really looking forward, if Chris manages to win this race, I'm looking forward to his interview with Helen at the end of the race, because he's never short of words, but I think he'll be as pleased with this victory as pretty much any race in his career. Andy Vernon is second place. He doesn't look like an athlete that believes he can win, does he? Andy now looks like an athlete concentrating on second place. There's Paul Pollock in third place. But last week we saw a really determined Andy Vernon grab the nettle 4 miles from the end, really looking absolutely determined and flying along the road. Today I think he's recognised that he is going to finish in second place, that it's Chris's day. And now his job is just to concentrate and to make sure that he does finish comfortably in second place.
Andy Vernon, such a strong-looking athlete. He ran really well last week, but so too did Chris Thompson. And it's Chris Thompson who's leading at the moment. That leg cadence still looks good. He's got those long socks on just to keep those calves warm. This is great to see from Chris Thompson. And I know we should remain neutral from a commentary box perspective, and of course it would have been fabulous if Andy Vernon had gone for 2 wins in a row and if he'd been the one leading at the moment. But it's hard not to feel pleased for an athlete like Chris Thompson because of how difficult his journey has been over the last 10 or 15 years. Because at times, Dave, he's contemplated retirement, and moments like this will make him ever so glad that he didn't succumb to those demons.
I think his fiancée has been a major part of his life and the support that he gets. I think that Alan Story, his current coach, Mark Rowland, who coached him over in Eugene, have been real significant parts of his life. And it's delightful to see him today. He's still got the bounce. Although he's tired with a couple of miles to go, the bounce is still there, and that's really significant. His shoulders still look relaxed. He's pumping his arms well, but he's bouncing along the road. And in his mind, he knows he's going to win this race. He'll be thrilled to bits that he's going to win this race. Although he'll be in pain, although he'll be in discomfort, the knowledge that you're going to win makes that discomfort, that pain, much easier to handle. And we can see Andy Pearce and Andy Vernon in second place and Paul Pollock in third.
Yes, so Vernon just needs to hang on a little bit here, because the Irishman, who was tagging along for a ride in the 3rd, 4th and 5th miles, there he is in 3rd place. And in 4th and 5th, I think we may have a battle. Certainly the last time we were looking, it was the likes of Matt Sharp. He was trying to close in on the podium positions along with the American Jeff Eggleston. But in the distance there is Paul Pollock. He's in 3rd. And here's Andy Vernon, last week's winner. And you can tell by the cadence, he's not bouncing as fluently as Chris Thompson, the leader, who's out of shot at the moment. But there's Paul Pollock, just at the top of picture, trying to close the gap. It will be a great run for him if he finishes 3rd, but he'd love to upgrade it to 2nd. But there's no doubt who's going to win this one, Dave. Chris Thompson, the man who has battled so many injuries. And I know we've mentioned this a couple of times, but it is important because it helps us to put into context how much this win will mean to Chris, especially as he enters the last mile, finishing runner-up to Andy Vernon last week. I'm really looking forward to that interview with Helen, because quite frankly, she probably doesn't even need to ask him a question. She could just hand him the microphone, stand back and listen. It won't quite be an Oscar speech, but it'll be worth hearing.
And it'll be much deserved. When you enter the last mile of a race, there's psychologically it's a wonderful thing. You do mile reps, you run sort of the mile distance many times in your training, and he's now comfortable in first place, but conscious that as it becomes half a mile, 400 meters, getting closer and closer to the finish, the wind behind him, although he's concentrating at the moment and struggling, in his mind he'll be delighted, he'll be thrilled, he'll know how much this victory means to him. He knows that he can put a lot of the frustration behind him, at least for today, and it creates a platform for the next year or two when hopefully he can go on and re-establish himself as one of Britain's best talents over the long distance. Looks like Paul Pollock is being caught, and it looks like Matt Sharp from Enfield and Haringey, who's having a fantastic race, is catching up Paul Pollock. So Matt Sharp in 4th place is really hauling Paul Pollock back.
Well, and look at the speed with which he's closed down that gap. Absolutely superb. And Pollock's, well, he's almost easing up with every stride here. And we saw Matt Sharp leading this race, trying to deny Vernon and Thompson the early initiative at the front as he just wipes the sweat from his eye. He's now alongside the Irish Olympic marathon runner, and look at the speed and the conviction with which he's gone past him. This is a cracking run from Matt Sharp. Could he be the one to deny Vernon 2nd place?
Possibly, but for Sharp to secure 3rd place, when you catch somebody, you really should blast past them and give them no option of getting back, which is easily said and done. Andy Vernon in 2nd place, but the challenge for Sharp at the moment is to break Pollock before he can really think about trying to chase after Andy Vernon. But for Pollock, he'll try and hang on to Sharp's shoulder and maybe grab third in the sprint finish. So still much work to be done to decide that the podium places, but this one is absolutely decided.
44.18 at 15k. So this is really good running from Chris Thompson. He could be on course here for a 10-mile personal best. He's proving here that he really does still have a lot to contribute to this sport, and you could tell by the flags fluttering just how advantageous and how strong this tailwind is here. He's done the hard work, he's made the break, he's decided to go for it at 6 miles, and now comes the reward. It's the wind at his back, it's the confidence that he'll take from this race, and he will really, really enjoy the last 550 metres of this Great South Run.
There's a lovely little left and right turn, and although you know there's 400 metres or so to go, it isn't until you do the quick left and then the quick right. You look up and you see 200 metres to go, but more importantly, he'll look up and see the finish. And my guess is we might see a little bit of a smile, a little bit of a wave. But in a moment, he'll do this quick left and right turn, and then he'll be clear to the finish. And the knowledge as he goes left, takes a look back, but he's just curious really rather than concerned. And then the right turn, then he'll see 200 metres to go, then he'll see the finish. Now he knows he's going to be the winner, and I think this will be one of the most enjoyable 200 metres that Chris has ever run in his life.
It really has been a journey for Chris Thompson. Not the 10 miles on the streets of Portsmouth that have taken him to victory here in the 2016 Great South Run, but the decades he has devoted to British athletics, to his sport and to distance running. There were many times, many moments where he thought days like this were long gone and would never return. But Chris Thompson reigns supreme in the sunshine of Portsmouth here, and you can see just what it means to him. It's a lifetime best, it's a great victory, and it reassures him that he does still have much to contribute to this sport. Vernon's coming home, hoping to win that battle for second place, but the glory and the top spot on the podium today belongs to Chris Thompson.
And it's really well deserved. We saw Andy Vernon safe in second place, Matt Sharp safe-ish in third. I think Paul Pollock's suffering there, so my guess is if Matt can just keep his head down at this point, he should secure third place, which I think he'll be delighted with. To finish that close to Chris and Andy is a very good achievement.
Great run there from Andy Vernon, and you can see how much respect there is between the two men, and what a cracking third from Matt Sharp. Paul Pollock just being denied a place on the podium this time, and Jeff Eggleston, the American who ran so well at the Moscow World Championship Marathon 3 years ago, he comes home after a very tired day. But look at that from Chris Thompson, 47.23, the time almost irrelevant, but he joins an illustrious list of winners. The first British champion since Mo Farah in 2009, Luke Kibet, the world marathon champion from Osaka, he's won this race. Khalid Skar, the Olympic champion over 10,000 metres, he's won this race. And now Great Britain's Chris Thompson adds his name to an illustrious list of winners. Gorgeous weather, a great morning for distance running, and what a demonstration of excellence from Tirunesh Dibaba, the multiple Olympic champion, adds the Great South Run title to her collection. Teferi second, Chirono, the Birmingham winner a week ago, she settles for third, and 3 Britons in the top 8, Partridge, Potter and Gemma Steele. And this will make great reading today and in the future for Chris Thompson. A massive lifetime best, Andy Vernon second, Matt Sharp denying Irish Olympian Paul Pollock a place on the podium. Scott Overall, Toyton and Surafel coming home in 6th, 7th and 8th. 2 cracking elite races here in near perfect conditions in Portsmouth.
And I'm joined now by the winners of the women's and men's elite races. Tirunesh Dibaba, huge congratulations, your debut at this event and just back from injury. How important was it to get the win here?
ዛሬ ማሸነፍሽ እንዴት ነበረ? የመጀመሪያ ሩጫሽ ነው እንደገና ደግሞ ከታመሽ ነበር እንዴት ነበር ነው?
አው የዛሬ 3 ሳምንት ውድድር ነበረኝ በእግር ምክንያት አልተወዳደርኩም ያው ትንሽ ተሽሎኝ ዛሬ ሮጫለሁ የአመቱ መጨረሻም ስለሆነ በጣም ደስ ብሎኛል በማሸነፌ
This was my first race. I came from injury and this will be my last race and winning was very important for me today and the run was good. I'm satisfied with the run I made today.
What about the future? How likely are you to concentrate on the road and the marathon?
ወደፊት ሮድ እና ማራቶን ላይ ታተኩሪያለሽ ወይ?
ማለት ያው ለሚቀጥለው አመት ማራቶን ለማሮጥ ያስባለሁ ዛሬ ደግሞ እዚህ በማሸነፌና ያው ቆንጆ ሰዓትም ነው የገባሁት ትንሽ ንፋስ ነበረ ያው ለሱም ውድድር ይረዳኛል ብዬ አስባለሁ
Yeah, I'm thinking of running the marathon next year and this run was very important for me as I'm moving towards the road races. And today's debut was important for me to see how I am on the road.
I think it's fair to say pretty good, wouldn't you? Huge congratulations, Tirunesh, and huge congratulations, Chris Thompson.
Thank you very much.
I mean, let's talk about your career. 10 years of battling. The guys have been saying how much you've done for the sport. How important was that victory for you?
It was huge. I mean, yeah, we were all chatting last night, exchanging a few stories. Dave was talking about his career, and we're all kind of being a bit reflectful. And there was a few times in there in my time that I thought it was the end. And I know I've said it a lot, and people that know the sport will know that I've had an Achilles op, and I bang on about it. But it was career changing, and I genuinely never thought I'd get back to any sort of level, let alone this. So it was huge because it felt good. It was nice to turn the tables on Andy from last weekend, and it's nice for him to have a race in his legs, which probably helped a little bit. And it just means a lot when you get those stepping stones back towards where you're trying to get to, and hopefully now I can get going into next year and get to London Marathon and Bluebirds, the Barrow team will get promoted and it'll make my year.
I love how 95% of the audience are like Bluebirds, what?
Yeah,
we both like the same football team.
Yeah.
Right, let's talk about the race tactics though, because you mentioned last week, obviously Andy made that break early on last week and went ahead. This week, it was the other way round, wasn't it?
It was, and he made a move and I think he thought it was going to be deja vu again. But I felt a lot different this time. And I think we're seeing it now. Look at those legs. And we knew turning at around about 5 miles we had the wind. And I just felt different this week to last week. And I knew he had a race in his legs which make a difference. And I'm over the moon, as you can see. But the last 4 or 5 miles, I just felt like I had an oomph in me that I didn't have last weekend. So, yeah, hopefully this is just the beginning and not the end.
Not the end? No, you can't stop now.
No, exactly. I'm going to have a break, obviously.
I know you did say you were going to have a break and I went, what, how long?
I know, a week.
Right, just a week.
Well, yeah, I'm going to have a week off, watch Barrow on TV next week, which I didn't realise I'm excited about, and then hopefully watch him in the FA Cup and then get back to the grind for next year. So I can start 2017 with a clean slate. I started this year not able to walk or get out of bed. So if I start next year actually able to do really good sessions and run like that, next year could be hopefully a whole different ball game.
No one can take away from how you've battled, but I also think one of the most impressive things about you is you look as if you still really enjoy your sport. And what about days like today? Just a word on the masses. How impressed are you with those tens of thousands of races?
It was incredible, and also on these races you get, because you get switchbacks, so you're running against the flow. We got a lot of go on Chris, go on Andy, and I felt a bit bad, sorry for the other guys, but it was really nice because obviously the battle last weekend with us both, and so it all feels everyone's part of the same race. It's not often like in the Olympics you've just got the 30 odd people running. Here you're running with 20,000 other people all enjoying it. The crowds are everywhere, they come out of the houses, watch, go back in, watch on TV. It's like the Tour de France of like running, and I love it. This is the fun part of racing.
Well, the serious runners are in, but thousands of runners still out there on the course and still plenty to cheer about. We'll hear from a few of them in a little while.